When my sister lost everything, they begged me for my house. When I said no, they faked my death, but I showed up at the will reading. I'm Alex, I'm 35 years old, and what I'm about to tell you sounds so absurd that even I can't fully believe it. My family literally faked my death to steal my house, but they got the surprise of their lives when I showed up at my own will reading. It all started when my younger sister, Carmen, 32, lost her job as a marketing manager at a company that went bankrupt during the pandemic. Carmen had always lived beyond her means: apartment in the most expensive part of town, latest model car, vacations to Europe twice a year. When she lost her job, her world came crashing down. At first, the whole family mobilized to help her. My parents lent her money. My older brother Robert got her interviews at his company, and I made the mistake of offering to let her stay temporarily in my guest house. You see, 5 years ago, I inherited my maternal grandfather's house. It's a beautiful property on the outskirts of town, with a 4-bedroom main house and an independent 2-bedroom guest house. My grandfather left it specifically to me because since I was a kid, I spent every summer helping him in his garden and listening to his stories. It was our special place. When Carmen arrived with her suitcases, I thought it would be for a couple of months maximum. Just until I get back on my feet, bro, I promise it. Won't be long, she said with tears in her eyes. Obviously, I said yes, she was my sister. The first month was tolerable. Carmen was actively job hunting, helped with household expenses, and even cooked occasionally. But by the second month, something changed. She wasn't going out for interviews as much. She spent her time in pajamas until noon, watching Netflix series. When I asked about her job search, she'd tell me the market was really tough, and she needed to take a mental break. By the third month, Carmen had turned the guest house into her personal kingdom. She had moved all the furniture to her liking, painted a wall pink without asking my permission, and adopted a dog without consulting me. When I complained, she said, "Oh, Alex, don't be so uptight, it's just a wall and the dog helps with my anxiety." But what really bothered me was when I came home from work on a Friday and found Carmen throwing a party in my backyard. There were like 20 people, music blasting, and they had used my grill and my alcohol without asking. When I told her it didn't seem appropriate, she yelled in front of everyone, "It's incredible how stingy you are. It's just a get-together with friends." That night, I decided enough was enough. I told her she had until the end of the month to find another place. Carmen cried, told me I was a horrible brother, that how could I kick her out when she was going through the most difficult time of her life. But I had already made my decision. What I didn't expect was my family's reaction. My mum called me the next day. "Alex, Carmen told me you're going to kick her out. You can't do that, she's your sister. Besides, you have that big house all to yourself. What does it cost you to share it?" My dad was more direct. "Son, that house was a gift from Grandpa. It didn't cost you anything. The least you can do is help your sister in these difficult times." Robert sent me a long text explaining that I didn't understand the pressures of having a family. He's married with 2 kids, and that if it were him, he wouldn't hesitate to help Carmen. Besides, he wrote, "You don't even use the guest house for anything." For the following weeks, it was constant pressure. At every family dinner, every phone call, the topic was the same. I was the selfish one who didn't want to help his sister. Carmen took every opportunity to play the victim. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she'd say between sobs during family dinners. "My brother is throwing me out on the street." The last straw was at my mum's birthday. Carmen stood up during the toast and said, "I want to thank all my family for supporting me during these difficult times." Well, almost all my family. And she looked directly at me. The uncomfortable silence that followed made me feel like the villain of the movie. My aunts looked at me with disapproval. My cousins whispered among themselves, and my parents seemed embarrassed by me. That night, I came home determined to stick to my position. Carmen had to go, period. But when I arrived, I found the house empty. There was a note on the kitchen table. "Alex, I left so you won't feel bad about kicking me out. I hope you're happy in your big, lonely house. I'll be at Mum and Dad's until I find something. Thanks for nothing. Carmen." I felt relieved, but also guilty. Maybe I had been too harsh. Maybe I should have given her more time. 2 days. Later, I received a call that would change everything. It was my cousin Daniel crying on the phone. "Alex, did you hear? Carmen is in the hospital. She had a really bad accident." My world stopped. According to Daniel, Carmen had been in a car accident on her way to a job interview. She was in a coma in intensive care. I felt like the worst person in the world. If I hadn't kicked her out, this wouldn't have happened. I rushed to the hospital, but when I arrived, the nurses told me only immediate family could see her, and that my parents had left specific instructions that I wasn't allowed in. Robert came out to talk to me in the hallway. "Alex," he said with a serious face, "Mom and Dad are really angry with you. They say if you had let Carmen stay at your house, this wouldn't have happened." The following days were a nightmare. I called the hospital constantly, but they wouldn't give me information. My parents wouldn't answer my calls. Robert sent me occasional updates. "I'm still the same. Doctors don't know if she'll wake up. Dad says this is your fault." A week later, I received the call you never want to receive. It was my mum, crying inconsolably. "Alex, Carmen, she's no longer with us." I don't really remember what happened next. I think I screamed. I think I cried. I think I threw the phone. What I do remember is the crushing guilt I felt. My sister had died, and it was my fault for kicking her out of the house. The funeral was surreal. My parents hugged me, but I could feel their resentment. "We can't do anything for Carmen now," my mum told me, "but I hope you can live with what you did." After the burial, the family gathered at my parents' house. That's when things got weird. "Alex," my dad said solemnly, "we need to talk about the house." The house. Grandpa's house. Carmen always dreamed of living there. It was her favorite place when we were kids. We think it would be appropriate for the house to go to someone who really needs it," Robert intervened. "Brother, you live alone, you have a good job, you can get an apartment anywhere. But think about my kids, about the family's future. That house could be perfect for us." My mom put her hand on my shoulder. "Son, I know it's a lot to ask, but Carmen would have wanted the house to go to the family. For the children." I was in shock. My sister had just died, and they were already talking about dividing up my properties. But I felt so guilty about what had happened that I couldn't think clearly. "I need time to think about it," I told them. The following days were constant pressure. Robert sent me photos of his kids playing in my parents' yard, with messages like, "Imagine how happy they'd be in a house with a big garden." My mom called me to tell me how Carmen always talked about how much she loved that house. My dad sent me links to apartments for sale, saying, "Look, this could be perfect for you." 3 weeks after Carmen's death, when I was still feeling guilty and confused, I received a legal summons. Robert had started a process to claim the house, arguing that as the older brother with a family, he had more right to the property than I did. That summons woke me up. Seriously? My brother was suing me for my house 3 weeks after Carmen's funeral? I called my lawyer, the same one who had handled Grandpa's inheritance, and told him what was happening. His response left me cold. "Alex, what death are you talking about?" "My sister Carmen. She died 3 weeks ago in a car accident." Silence on the other end of the line. "Alex, I need you to come to my office immediately." An hour later, I was sitting in front of my lawyer's desk, Mr. Fernando, who had been my grandfather's friend for decades. "Son," he said gravely, "Carmen isn't dead." "What do you mean she's not dead?" "I went to her funeral. I saw her in the casket. Last Wednesday, Carmen came to my office, asking about the process to inherit your house in case you died without a will." My world came crashing down. "What?" Mr. Fernando opened a file on his desk. "I have here copies of the documents she wanted to review. She specifically asked what would happen to Grandpa's house if you died interstate." I couldn't breathe. "But I went to the funeral. I saw the casket. My parents—" "Alex, I think you need to hire a private investigator." 2 days later, the investigator I hired called me with information that would change everything forever. "Mr. Alex, I found your sister. She's alive and well, living in a downtown apartment under the name Carmen Rodriguez Vega instead of Carmen Rodriguez Lopez." "What?" "Apparently she changed her maternal surname to her paternal one to avoid being detected. She has a job at a small advertising agency. I've been following her for 3 days." He sent me photos. It was Carmen, alive, walking down the street, drinking coffee, laughing with a friend. My family had faked her death. The rage I felt at that moment cannot be described in words. Not only had they faked my sister's death, but they had made me feel guilty about something that never happened. They had manipulated my grief to try to steal my house. But instead of confronting them immediately, I decided to be strategic. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier. I called Mr. Fernando and explained the situation. His plan was brilliant. Alex, they think Carmen is dead, right? Let's play along. For the next 2 weeks, I pretended to be seriously considering giving up the house. I told Robert I wanted to do things right, that I wanted to honor Carmen's memory. I even went apartment hunting with him, making him believe I was preparing to move. Meanwhile, Mr. Fernando was preparing a perfect legal trap. On Friday of the 3rd week, Mr. Fernando organized a family meeting to formalize the house transfer. He invited my parents, Robert, and told them he needed to read certain legal documents before proceeding with the transfer. They all arrived very dressed up. My parents with satisfied faces, Robert with a smile he couldn't hide. He had even brought his wife and kids, as if he were already the owner of the house. Mr. Fernando began with a very formal tone. We are gathered here to discuss the inheritance and distribution of assets following the death of Carmen Rodriguez Lopez. My parents nodded. Solemnly, Robert was taking notes on his phone. However, Mr. Fernando continued, before proceeding, I need to clarify an important legal matter. He pulled out a folder from the desk. According to state law, to proceed with a transfer of assets due to death, we need the official death certificate. My dad got nervous. Well, doesn't the hospital have it? Curiously, said Mr. Fernando, there is no death certificate for Carmen Rodriguez Lopez in the official records. In fact, at that moment the office door opened, and Carmen walked in, alive. My family's faces were epic. My mum screamed as if she had seen a ghost. My dad turned white as paper. Robert stood up so fast he knocked over the chair. Carmen, my mom screamed, you're alive. Carmen looked confused and scared. What are you talking about? Why is everyone here? Mr. Fernando smiled. Carmen, these people were here trying to claim your brother Alex's house based on the fact that you had died. What? Everything exploded at the same time. Carmen screaming that she had never died, my parents stuttering incoherent explanations, Robert trying to leave through the door. Silence, shouted Mr. Fernando with a voice that made the windows shake. He addressed my parents and Robert. You three have committed multiple crimes: document forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted illegal appropriation of property, and probably some more that my criminal law colleague can identify. My mum started crying. Fernando, please, we didn't mean to do anything wrong. We just thought... You thought what? I finally exploded. You thought faking my sister's death to steal my house was a good idea? Robert tried to defend himself. Alex, you don't understand. Carmen really needed help and you have that big house. And that's why you invented that she had died? Made me go to a fake funeral? Made me feel guilty for weeks? Carmen was in total shock. You faked my death? How? Why? Mr. Fernando explained. Apparently they organized a fake funeral with a closed casket, bribed someone at the hospital to confirm the story, and created false death documents. You bribed someone at the hospital? Carmen was furious now. Are you crazy? My dad tried to justify himself. Carmen, you yourself said you wanted to live in that house. We just tried to... I never said that. I wanted to stay temporarily while I found a job. I never asked you to fake my death. The truth was worse than I thought. Carmen knew nothing about the plan. My parents and Robert had faked her death without telling her, probably hoping to convince her after getting the house. Mr. Fernando continued, I have here all the evidence of your fraud attempts. The false documents you presented, recordings of conversations where you admit to the deception, and Carmen's testimony as a victim as well. Recordings? Asked my mum. Alex has been recording all your conversations since he started suspecting something didn't add up. It was a lie, but it worked. Robert went completely pale. Now, said Mr. Fernando with authority, you have 2 options. First, I take all this to the district attorney, and you face criminal charges for fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy. Second, you sign an agreement where you commit to never contact Alex again or approach his property, and we consider this a resolved family matter. My parents and Robert chose the second option without hesitation. But I wasn't done. There's one more condition, I said. You're going to publicly confess what you did. You're going to call every person who was at that fake funeral and explain that it was all a lie. You're going to apologize to every aunt, every cousin, every friend you manipulated. Alex, that's humiliating, said my mum. more humiliating than faking your daughter's death to steal your other son's house. They signed the agreement. Update 1. It's been 2 months since the meeting at Mr. Fernando's office, and I can say the consequences have been intense. First, Carmen and I have completely rebuilt our relationship. It turns out that during those weeks when I thought she was dead, she had actually been job hunting and had found a position at an advertising agency. She never knew the family had faked her death until that day in the lawyer's office. "Alex," she told me through tears after the meeting, "I thought you were angry with me, and that's why you weren't talking to me. I thought you hated me because of the party and everything that happened." I explained that I had tried to contact her, but our parents had told me she was in the hospital and then dead. We realized they had been intercepting our attempts to communicate. Carmen decided to move permanently away from our parents. In fact, I offered for her to return to the guest house under clear conditions and established boundaries, and now we live on the same property, but maintaining our independent spaces. It works perfectly. As for my parents and Robert, they reluctantly fulfilled their part of the agreement. They had to call every person who had been at the fake funeral. The reactions were epic. My Aunt Rosario called me crying, "Alex, I can't believe your parents did something like that. I'm so embarrassed that I believed that lie." My cousin Daniel was furious. "How could they make us believe Carmen had died?" I cried. At that fake funeral. But the best part was when my Aunt Mercedes, who had always been dramatic, made an epic scene with my parents at the supermarket. According to witnesses, she yelled at them in the cereal aisle, "You made me cry for a living dead person. I'm the laughingstock of the bridge club." The entire extended family stopped talking to my parents and Robert. At family gatherings, nobody pays attention to them. It's like they're social ghosts. Robert lost several clients at his company when the story spread in his professional circle. Apparently, faking your sister's death to steal a house isn't good publicity for a CPA. But wait, because this gets better. Update 2. 6 months after Funeral Gate, that's what Carmen and I call it, I received an unexpected call. It was my cousin Lucia, daughter of my Aunt Mercedes. Lucia is a lawyer and had always been neutral in family dramas, but this call was different. "Alex, I need to tell you something important about Grandpa's inheritance." It turns out Lucia had been reviewing the family's legal documents for a genealogy project and had discovered something nobody knew. My grandfather had left another property. "What? Your grandfather had land on the coast, near Myrtle Beach. According to the documents, he also left it to you in the will, but apparently the previous lawyer didn't mention it because there was a legal problem with the property documents that was resolved years later. Now I had not only the house, but also beachfront land worth a fortune." Mr. Fernando confirmed the information. "Alex, with current real estate prices in that area, that land is worth at least 3 times more than the house." I decided it was time for a second family meeting. I organized a dinner at my house, the one they tried to steal from me, and invited my parents and Robert. I also invited Carmen as a witness and moral support. When they arrived, they looked hopeful. They probably thought I had forgiven them and wanted to rebuild the family relationship. After dinner, I served dessert and said, "Well, I invited you because I wanted to give you important news." Their faces lit up. It turns out Grandpa left me another property that nobody knew about. Robert almost choked on his flan. "Another property?" "Yes. Beachfront land in Myrtle Beach worth approximately $600,000. My mom got that calculating look she had when she saw deals at the supermarket. "Oh, son, how wonderful. Grandpa really loved you." "That's right, Mum. He loved me so much that he left me properties that you tried to steal by faking my sister's death." The atmosphere immediately became tense. "But don't worry," I continued. "I didn't invite you to rub it in your faces. I invited you to tell you what I'm going to do with the land." "What are you going to do?" asked Robert with a trembling voice. "I'm going to donate it." Total silence. "It's going to be a complete donation to a foundation that builds houses for families who really need them. Families who don't have to fake deaths or manipulate their loved ones to have a home." My dad turned red. "Alex, that's a very hasty decision. Maybe you should think about it better." "I already thought about it, Dad. I also thought about how you made me feel guilty about my sister's fake death. I thought about how you manipulated me for weeks. I thought about how you tried to steal my inheritance." Carmen intervened. And I think it's a beautiful idea, brother. Also, I added, you're going to be invited to the donation ceremony. It's going to be very media-friendly. They're going to take pictures. I'm sure many people you know will be there. The implication was clear. Everyone they knew would find out that I had donated a fortune instead of giving it to my family, and everyone would know why. They left without saying goodbye. Update 3. A full year has passed since Funeral Gate, and I can finally say my life is at peace. The land donation was an incredible success. The foundation built 15 houses for low-income families, and the ceremony was on the local news. Sure enough, many acquaintances of my parents and Robert saw the news and learned the whole story. Carmen and I continue living on Grandpa's property, but now as true housemates. She has her space, I have mine, and we share expenses fairly. She's progressed tremendously at her job and is even considering buying her own place soon. My parents tried to reach out a couple of times, especially during the Christmas holidays, but they were superficial reconciliation attempts that were clearly motivated by guilt rather than genuine remorse. Robert, on the other hand, has had more severe consequences. His professional reputation never fully recovered, and he had to move to another state to start over. His wife contacted me once to apologize for not knowing about the plan, and assured me she never would have agreed if she had known. The best part of all this is that I learned to value genuine relationships over family expectations. Carmen and I now have a stronger relationship than ever, based on mutual respect and clear boundaries, and Grandpa's house remains our refuge, just as he would have wanted. Sometimes I get messages from extended family telling me gossip about my parents and Robert. Apparently, they're still the topic of conversation at family gatherings, but not as victims, but as the ones who tried to steal the house by faking a death. My Aunt Mercedes now tells the story at her bridge club as if it were a soap opera. According to my cousin Lucia, she's already turned it into a 3-part saga, with dramatic effects included. In retrospect, although it was a horrible experience, it taught me valuable lessons about family, manipulation, and the importance of standing firm in one's principles. It also showed me that, sometimes the closest people are capable of betraying you in ways you never imagined. But most importantly, I realized that true family isn't the one that shares your blood, but the one that respects your boundaries and loves you unconditionally. Carmen and I are planning to remodel the guest house so it's completely independent. Grandpa would be proud to know that his gift continues to unite the family that really matters. And no, my parents and Robert will never set foot on this property again. But that story about the Myrtle Beach land I donated, well, it turns out that wasn't the only surprise Grandpa's will had. But that's a story for another day. What I can say is that no amount of money is worth the peace of mind I have now. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. What do you think? Do you think I was too harsh with my family, or did they deserve the consequences? What would you have done in my place? Leave me your comments down below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Also, share the video with your friends. I'm sure you know someone who's had epic family dramas. And speaking of family dramas, you now have another incredible story on screen about family secrets and revenge that I'm sure you'll love. Click to keep enjoying the channel's content. See you in the next video.